Hi guys, welcome to Windsome Cottage Garden. My name is Hannah and I'm so glad that you decided to join me today. We are in the cottage garden and I thought today we would just do a walk around check-in on our dahlias. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I am in zone 6A right now at our cottage garden. I also document my home garden on this channel, which is zone 6B, about 90 miles south of here. And dahlias in our area need to be pulled in the winter. We love dahlias. I have a ton of different tubers that I've collected over the years, and we store them for the winter. Though we will admit that our process has not always been the smoothest. We are still learning the best way to label the dahlias. We've tried writing on the tubers, we've tried tying something around the tubers when we're storing them, and it can be a little bit difficult. One of the things we're doing this year is really trying to focus in on that and hone our process. We also had a lot of loss over the years. We are struggling to find a good spot to store the tubers. My understanding is you want to store them between 50 and 55 degrees, maybe as low as 45. We are in an area that our garage gets too cold and our like unfinished crawl space and basement is too warm. So we're still trying to find where exactly the right balance is. But dahlias are such resilient plants. Even though these tubers came out desiccated, it's amazing what they have done. So why don't I give you an overview? In this garden, we have probably about 75 different tubers that we overwintered and have stored. Well, probably about 60 that we overwintered and stored, and about 15 new ones. And I thought today we would just kind of go take a look at them and maybe stop at a couple other things that are looking really good at late August. I'm not going to do a full-blown garden tour, but before I head down into the yard, I thought I'd show you a couple pots that are looking really, really nice, including this one. Now, these color combinations aren't necessarily what we would typically put together for our style, but we did this one just for hummingbirds. And even as I was standing here, I saw probably 6 or 7 hummingbirds kind of buzz close and then buzz away. We have this next to it. We also have a hummingbird feeder, but we didn't plant anything on it this year because they use it as a perch, and we're happy to have them kind of just come and sit and buzz around. I am going to go dive in and we'll look at these beds from below. But a couple things I wanted to point out before I did so was that we finished the Houtunia project. Well, the plasticking of the Houtunia project. We have a video from earlier this summer where we were pulling all the Houtunia out. We had some fabric in here that we also pulled out, and then we put food grade, really thick plastic down that we're planning to keep down for 2 years to smother out the Houtunia through like a solarization method. One of the things we've done that you can kind of see from above maybe is we actually used Gorilla Tape to do the seams because it is very, very tough and waterproof. And we got a load of rocks to kind of go around the edges of some things because we thought that looked prettier than just wood or other things that stood out more. And we wanted it to look nice since this is going to be like this for 2 years. The other thing you might notice if you've been following the channel is that this little landing spot by the arbor is looking so much neater. It's something my dad did after he finished the plastic because he really wanted that to be nice as well. So he put in the edging, a couple little spots, and it's a really nice path down and landing for the stone steps that lead from under the deck porch area down into the other yard. So you can see from here that, and I'll link a video where we planted these earlier this year, most of them anyway. We have a large chunk of dahlias right here behind this magnolia. We have a large, like 20 or so in this bed. And then we have some down here on the lower side of this tree bed and a couple around the vegetable garden. So let's make our way down there and check in on how everything is doing. As I start walking down the yard, I did want to mention that we have this really pretty stand. I think it's of Heliopsis that is just kind of coming into its glory. Well, maybe a little past glory, but it's been providing such a pretty color, especially with this red cone flower. And as we look up, you can see the Princess Alexandra of Kent is in bloom. This is just a really pretty. We also planted these phlox from Proven Winners. I don't remember what their exact name is, but couple things are looking good. There's a couple spaces here and there we can fill in, but it's providing some interest. The hydrangea that was so pretty earlier this summer is beginning to enter its fall-ish color, but what is not entering its fallish color are these dahlias right here. I'm actually going to unhook this. If you are wondering what all this is, we deal with deer quite badly. So we have fencing around all of our beds. It mostly keeps them out, but it does make it a little trickier to get in. I'm glad that one was easy. And I thought I would go and kind of give you just really close looks at these. I don't know all their names. I have ideas on some of them. And I'm actually going to, as I'm editing this video, look at some of my former purchases and see if I can label them. So we'll find out together. If I know in the moment, I will say it. Or if I know where I got it, I will probably say it too. But in general, things are looking great. We did 3 rows of dahlias earlier this year. This one I can tell you is just a orange ball dahlia that I got in a mix from Eden Brothers a couple years ago. I will admit, and maybe things have changed a little bit since then, I stopped purchasing mixes from Eden Brothers because I found I was not getting what was sold in the mix pretty routinely. But I know this one, for instance, is also from a mix there that was like a bridal one, and this is a sweet Natalie dahlia, a water lily style with like the rounded bits, and it's just looking so pretty. Here's another one too. It's looking nice. We have myrtle that is actually blooming again everywhere, so I'm going to watch where I step a little bit. This dahlia is a little hard to tell. I wish I could have seen it in its full glory. I'm thinking it's probably another water lily one that's just a little bit bigger, but I confess I do not know which one it is. So I'm going to have to go back and look. It is a pretty strong pink, which is beautiful, which I very much appreciate. The other thing you're going to notice as I'm kind of walking around is we didn't do a great job of staking. So for instance, this dahlia, which is very tall, and this is a seed dahlia that I started growing probably 3 or 4 years ago that I've been calling Sunset because it looks like the beautiful colors of a sky with clouds over Lake Michigan especially. And I just absolutely love it. Now this one has a couple rows. Most of them don't. I'm trying to see. Oh, sorry, bee friend. That is a very pretty color. I love single dahlias. They're very easy to work in, but you can see that it's kind of fallen over. I probably should have come up with a staking method because it also means the rows that I planted aren't as easy to traverse either. But kind of going around, here's another example of the flower. And we do have another dahlia in here that is another seed dahlia that I grew again a couple years ago. Now I, at my home garden, showed in a garden check-in this week, in fact, that I have a whole ton of seed dahlias from seed I purchased from Florette that we're going to be deciding what we're keeping, what we're going. I'll probably keep this one, but though I've noticed there are a number that I'm growing this year that look fairly similar to it. But I think they're so cheery and big. I'd say probably about 4.5 inches. Nice and open-faced. But I was making my way over here to show you this. This is a purple ball dahlia that I purchased from Swan Island Dahlia. I'm not sure of its name. I'm going to look it up and pop it on the screen. But that blue and purple is something that I really wanted to make sure that I bought and I invested in last year. And I'm happy to see a couple of the Swan Island Dahlias in here because I was worried that none of them had made it. So there's this one, which is like very purpley. And there's this one, which this is not the best example, but you can kind of get the idea of what it's looking like. This is called Blue Bayou. What I love about it is when it's fresh, it's got like 1.5 inches at least of this middle center, which is really pretty, and then purpley pink leaves that surround it, which I absolutely love. So this was from Swan Island Dahlia that I purchased last year, and I am fairly sure, I'm going to go back and check, that this one is from Longfield Gardens, and it is called a Hawaiian Decorative Dahlia. This has a little more white than the other ones we've had in the past, but I found that the dahlia last year actually probably had 4 or 5 different colors on the same plant. So we'll just have to wait and see. These blooms are just getting started, I think, towards the end of the month, and in the September garden tour, they're going to be going gangbusters. You can kind of also see from here that we'll pop down and look at the hibiscus. So it's looking good as well. Okay, so we've looked at these. This one actually has a label. Now, some of these were written with tags that weren't UV resistant. Okay, water lily. I bet it was here and then it's faded. I think this is one that we purchased this year from Longfield Gardens, which again is actually a place we've kind of moved away from because their tubers weren't that great and some of the flowers haven't been quite as described. But we do have this one, which I'm fairly certain is one we purchased at Swan Island last year. I'll have to look it up. And then this one also is one from Swan Island. It may be that same one over there that we were able to get 2 dahlias out of it. I'm not entirely sure, but as I'm looking at it, they look fairly similar. And then here, I don't think any of these are looking good, but it was just another orange ball. Very similar to that one, maybe just a little bit softer. Oh, I did kind of pass this dahlia. Look at this. This is definitely one I purchased from Swan Island last year. And this is really not showing the depth of color. It has like a red center, deep red to red, and then to hot pink. Just looks so cool. Now these are spent blooms. If I had pruners, I would do this with pruners. Since I don't, I'm just gonna pop them off. You can usually tell when a bloom is spent because when it closes, here's one. This is spent. This is one that hasn't opened, and see how it's rounded? This is one that has opened and is now closed fully and is probably forming seeds. I don't want seeds. You can tell from the point, that's what it's doing. So to stop it from putting effort into that, I'm just gonna pull that out quickly. We have a dahlia here that hasn't done anything yet. That's not gonna be the first or last we see. And then we have this one, which I believe is from Swan Island Dahlia, and I'm gonna have to look up. It might be Cheer, it might be Crazy Legs. It could be something else I'm not thinking of at the moment. But it has attracted a lot of Japanese beetles. I just knocked one out, which is disappointing. I do need to come out here probably with a soapy jar and just drop them in. Let's see. I'm going to talk about Japanese beetles in a second. Before I do, though, I do want to acknowledge this one. Isn't this beautiful? I think this might be a Randy Dawn. I have to double check, but this is definitely a dinner plate dahlia, one of the few that survived. And it is big hand. It's head sized. Okay, at least child head sized. Big and beautiful. And we have another one that has not yet opened yet in this space. And one right here that is looking a little behind as well. But in general, this patch, which was the first patch we planted here, is doing really well. I don't know if you can see, there's a hummingbird chilling on that fence. We have probably 4 that live around the garden. And then we have more that come in, but they're a bit territorial. Hummingbirds are pretty amazing birds as well. Oh, there it goes. Getting some purple coneflower. Hummingbirds have to eat. Oh, that's convenient. He can sit and eat. I think they have to eat their body weight like 5 or 6 times a day to maintain the energy they need. Crazy and impressive. Japanese beetles. I said I was going to say something to them. We deal with them quite badly here. Though this year hasn't been as bad as some years. Hopefully, now that I've said that, I haven't cursed anything. But you want to be very careful with Japanese beetles. They release a pheromone that basically sends out a signal that says, hey, other Japanese beetles, come here. There's a large quantity of us. So when they congregate in numbers, like if you put a bait bag out, that is actually drawing more of them to your yard. Sometimes that might be good, but in general, I would not suggest doing that. The other thing that's unfortunate about them is when you crush them, you're releasing that pheromone. So without spraying for them, which I don't even know what you would spray, but it would probably harm a lot of beneficial insects, one of the most effective ways to deal with them is getting a jar of water and adding a little bit of dish soap in there, which helps break the surface tension. And what that means is when you flick them in, they will drown. Might take them a little bit, but they'll be on the way out. So gross as that is, doing it early, and we've been doing it throughout the season, so I've only seen probably 5 or 6 today, which is not bad. And that's been in multiple areas total. That's helped us keep on top of it, because if you can do it earlier enough in the season, they will spend time going to others' gardens rather than yours when they're looking for food. Okay, more dahlias. This is our Miss Kim lilac bed. We're going to walk around so you'll be able to see it all, because you can probably already glimpse some of our beautiful hibiscus are in bloom. But before I walk over there, I wanted to check this one out. This is a new one we purchased this year from Longfield Gardens, and we have actually a large number. I think my mom purchased it in an earlier order and then didn't realize she purchased it and purchased it again. So we have like 6 tubers of it. I think there's 2 or 3 in this yard, and I have 2 in my yard as well. So that's one. I don't know what it's called. I'll look it up and pop it on the screen. This one has not yet bloomed. We will have to wait and see. But in this one, we'll go look at those guys from down below. I do know what they are. But check out these pretty cone flowers. We have 2 different kinds here. I think they kind of go together. This was slightly unintentional. When I purchased these, it was like an end of a season sale at a really large greenhouse. And I thought I was buying 3 of this one, which has a Native American name. I can't remember. And then when I got here, I noticed one of them had a tag. The outside said this name, but one of them had a tag that was different, and it is indeed different. So it's a little bit of a bummer. But they flow together, though I'm probably going to pull this out and stick it somewhere new. And then in the spring next year, maybe divide these and just fill in this area a little bit more. But as we're walking around, we have a really pretty white dahlia. There's a couple of spent blooms, as I mentioned. But it's a really nice one to work into flower arrangements. We also have a fairly common seed dahlia. I have so many of these that we're probably only going to keep one because it is a pretty color. I like how dark and sturdy the stems are. They're nice and long, but we don't need more than one. Okay, walking around. This is another seed dahlia I have saved. I talked about it in the July home garden tour because I have one of them there. It's so fluffy. I absolutely love it. This is one of the new ones. It's looking really rough, so I'm not going to get too close to it. It's being eaten by earwigs quite badly. We have a really pretty red ball dahlia that I think was part of a romantic mix from Eden Brothers quite some time ago. And as we come in here, we have this beautiful yellow dahlia, very clear. Again, not entirely sure what it is, but it's a really pretty juxtaposition for our froggy hydrangea. Froggy is one of my favorite hydrangeas. You know what? I'm actually gonna get in here again. I try not to get into too much because it's kind of annoying to close it back up. Pause for a moment. Pretty hydrangeas are one of my favorite hydrangeas. I mean, if you get closer, when they first open, they are fully green, which is why they get their name. Very cool. It kind of blends, but as it ages, it goes to like a lighter green with bits of pink. Then it'll go really nice and light with like interesting green veining. And then this is its fall color. It'll kind of get more like this and into this. And then this whole thing will become like a dark maroon. I need to take a cutting of it and start getting some going for my home garden. It's one of my absolute favorites. I haven't been able to find it anywhere I have looked. Most people haven't even really heard of it, which is a bummer. But since I'm in here now, you can see this a lot better. I'd say it's got a couple of like red stripes on it. You can see just edges here and there. I wonder if this one doesn't really have that at all. So maybe that's the exception rather than the rule. But it is such a clear yellow that is so cheerful. This is a seed dahlia. Unfortunately, I am not seeing any in bloom. You can kind of tell by the ones down there and up here. I actually call this one Sunrise in my head. So you saw up over that way the sunset dahlia. This one's Sunrise because it's got the lighter colors. And then here's another one as well that is similar to this one, but just a little softer, more pale yellow. We have another one of these guys, and since I'm close, I can show you what's really cool about it is the undersides are red, which is one of the things my mom loved about it. Moving along, you can see we have a really pretty pink ball dahlia. One of the things I like about this is it is a little smaller. So these are great to work into flower arrangements. Really, really good. We also have some denim and lace, Russian sage doing well, and you can see these awesome berry, I think it's summerific berry awesome hydrangeas. They're always these are hardy hydrangeas. So cool. So cool. Now, one thing that's I think is really interesting about I said hydrangea. These are not hydrangeas. These are hibiscus. So, summerific, very awesome hibiscus. One thing I think is really interesting about hibiscus flowers is the blooms generally only last one day. That's why you'll see there's tons of them. These are going to be, this one will probably be tomorrow, this one the day after it, and then there's more to come. But they're huge. I bet that's probably like 8 to 10 inches. Really, really cool. In here we have another dahlia. Let's see, this is probably, I would get in there, but it's kind of hard to without opening up the whole thing. Not sure what this one is pretty. I thought it was labeled as a dinner plate, and I don't think that's necessarily correct. We have another dahlia that hasn't flowered. This one, I don't remember what it's called. It's obviously another hibiscus and it hasn't started flowering yet. I'm hoping it does soon because it's I think it's the inverse of these. So, well, let's go back. I don't see any that are super open on that one. That one is also a summerific, very awesome. And while this is pink with a red center, that is red with a pink center and a little bit darker leaves. I just need it to bloom. And then we have this one looking pretty, more Russian sage, and there is actually a second dahlia that hasn't bloomed in there. Looking up here, we have, this is a totally tangerine dahlia that again is from Swan Island and a favorite. And then that is one of those seed dahlias that I showed you over there that we have a number of. As we're getting more discerning with our dahlias, we're probably not going to keep multiple tubers of these, and we're going to have to decide what we're keeping in general. We stored a large number of dahlias last year, too many. So we're taking a step back and assessing what we really want to keep. It's really hard right now to do that because I think the answer would be everything. And that's what we did not have space for. So one last dahlia in here. Isn't this one so cute? This is from Swan Island. I think it's called Bumble Rumble, but I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to have to double check. But it's a really pretty colorette type that I absolutely love. And I'm glad I finally came back. I was worried about it. It was one of my favorites. Mixes so well with a lot of the other dahlias you have seen. And that really brings me to the last place we have dahlias here. And these are looking a little rough. I think that they might need a little more water than they're getting. So my dad is going to explore that and probably give them some supplemental water so that they can grow on. But even if they do need supplemental water, they are still looking good. For context, we are down at the bottom bed nearest the water and vegetable garden. And we had blueberry bushes in here that we removed this year because they weren't producing. I wonder if they too were suffering from needing a tiny bit more water. But we thought putting these here would be good. Now, here is another one of those dahlias I mentioned we had a lot of. And we have this one, which we don't know what it is, long story short. I'm going to go back now that I have it on camera and see if I can find it in any of my records of things I have purchased. We have this really pretty black-eyed Susan plant that I got from my work, and I absolutely love it. I have no idea what it's called. They were getting rid of some, and I asked to take them, and they gave them to me. Some of these have been hit harder with the Japanese beetles than others. You can see we have another one of those short dahlias. This one, it's been eaten by earwigs and Japanese beetles. And then we have another one of those really soft ones and another bumble rumble, which is nice to see. We have another sea dahlia, which I really appreciate. These are a little bit more like bluey purple, and they also are very flat. It's kind of hard to show you, but you can see how flat they are. So they're great in vases. We also have a large number here that have yet to flower. Some of them are stressed, like I said. Some of them haven't come up. All of these where we put tubers directly in the ground. So we are going to wait till the sun goes down a little bit today and give this section in particular more water. I think we got another one of those nice purpley ball dahlias. We have another dark red one. And also, look up here, you guys. Do you see how beautiful these allium look and how smothered they are with pollinators? I absolutely love these are the Serendipity allium. We have them. These, we've also had some Millennium allium, which are very similar. We have a third type whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. But these have looked the best this year. We have these exact ones in the front of our house. And even though they're not supposed to like it, a deer came in and ate every single one of them. Which is like, or a rabbit, I guess. It could be something else. Either way, it was decidedly not cool. Okay, I have popped into our vegetable garden where we have the last dahlias that we planted here at the cottage this year. Vegetable garden is looking very full and lush. We have a bird problem, so we have our tomatoes tented, I guess is probably the right word, with netting. My dad rigged this up, and before anyone asks, we have not had any problem with birds getting stuck in this netting. What is this? These look like eggs of some sort. Now, I don't know what they are, and this is probably not the best thing for me to do, but usually when I see eggs like this, I think, yeah, if it's meant to be, it'll be, and if not, I just saved us a problem down the road. Yeah, so we haven't had any problem with birds getting stuck in this year. I'm out in the middle of the heat of the day, so some of these look like they need water. We'll get water tonight. But we have like baby spaghetti squash, some butternut squash, some zucchinis. Looking good. Anyway, talking about dahlias. Actually, let's start over here. So this strip, I think one of the things we want to figure out is how to hook it up to drip, because it too is a little sad from lack of water. But I planted in here, it's one we added this year, just a little 1.5 foot or so strip on either side of the door. My dad is planning to make this a little bit more of a permanent fence the next year, hopefully. I did just get stung. I think I got too close to this bee that was eating. But anyway, so what we did on either side is we put dahlias in here as well as some zinnias and some cosmos I had left over. You can see the cosmos are actually doing pretty well. And then most of the dahlias came up. I don't think this one did, but a lot of them are really small, which is not super surprising. A couple of them have just started blooming. Let's see, there's one. This one that our friend is looking at is a seed dahlia. See if you can see that. It's a bit oddly lit right now. This one is going to be starting. Isn't this Cosmo pretty? This is a Rubenza Cosmo. Most of these zinnias are from Florette in here. And then again, you can see small, small, small. And then we have one dahlia that's doing really well. And I think it's because it gets hit by the sprinklers more. And this is looking a little sad because it's been eaten a little bit by bugs. But this is a Rebecca Lynn or Rebecca's World dahlia, which is the name of my brother's partner, which is why we bought it. And we kept it because it's a very pretty dahlia. On our way up, I just want to give homage to the Gertrude Jekyll rose, which is one of the best smelling roses and reflushing here as well. And actually, since I'm here, you can see a slightly closer look at our solarization attempt. You can see the tape I talked about better here. And if you were curious, we do have drip run under this. And my dad just hooks up a hose here because he didn't want it running every day like with the sprinklers and whatnot, because this actually holds water in quite a lot. So that would be too much for these plants. So he just will hook up a hose here when he wants it, run it for however long. I don't think this one has one, but the only plant in here is this tree. And there was a reason why he thought it would be okay. But I'm not remembering at the moment what it is. Now you know, and can see that that project did get finished eventually. Okay, I'm a little bit sweaty. Please excuse the glow. It's warmer than I anticipated coming out here. But those are the dahlias at the cottage garden. You got to see a glimpse of what it's looking like now. Some things have changed. The hibiscus are an August highlight in my mind that just bring a tropical look to our northern Michigan garden, which I love to see. But the dahlias are always the star of the late summer garden for me. I'm going to try, as I mentioned, to identify any that I didn't know the name of. And I will put the name of the ones that I did know just to confirm if it's different than what I said. It's because I was wrong and I misremembered. But I love dahlias. They're not that scary. I've had a lot of people say, oh, it always seems like a lot of work. They seem so fussy. I kind of abuse the dahlias. Like, I am not as attentive. They do a lot better if I was more attentive. That's probably a better way to say it, that they would do better if I was more attentive. And they can take a certain level of neglect. So if it's something that you've thought about but weren't sure, try it. They kept really well. Sometimes these tubers are an investment. Keep them. You can even divide them and share them, sell them. I've never done that, but I do share it with friends and family. I've never sold them, and I don't think I would ever want to, because I am in no way a professional, which is why you haven't really seen me make like a how-to video. I don't do it very well. As I said, my dahlias go through a slight level of abuse, but they're still thriving. They're still looking good. Now these, as I mentioned, we all gave a head start. So what we did for these was, probably starting about a month ahead of our last frost date, we put them in big trays. I have a video I'll link below where they could start developing their roots and getting those eyes out for the season. Once the eyes broke through the soil and started to put on leaves, we potted them up into smaller size pots, which eventually got put in the garden. Some of those, especially those ones in the blueberry bed and the bed in the vegetable garden, never put on eyes that broke the surface, but when we got in there, they had a lot of activity and we planted them anyway. And I think I only saw 2 or 3 that didn't come up. So in general, great. I bet we probably had about 80 to 90% of the dahlias we stored come back. And I am going to have to do a little bit of digging to see what didn't. We had a lot of bridal mix dinner plate dahlias, which I didn't see, and I had some labeled that, which were wrong. As I said, labeling is something we're trying to improve upon. So that's probably something that we may choose to invest in next year, because we don't use those for cut flower arrangements, but they bring such a beautiful and awe-inspiring pop to a garden that they're missed a tiny bit, and we'll be excited to get them back next year. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. We're going to be returning to more regular content now that the weather is cooling off and the hot days are hopefully behind us. It's still really warm, but it's not like 100 degrees and 100% humidity. Ugh, it's just disgusting. Like, even this morning, it was only 67 degrees, which is not warm, but I think the humidity was 98, 99%. And I walked outside to take the dogs out, and it was just like walking into a wet blanket. So I've been waiting for the breeze to pick up and the humidity to die down, which doesn't always work out. And that just means I'm glowing more than I'd like to be. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this check-in. We're going to be back in the home garden soon, working on a couple of different things. I really appreciate you joining me today. If you liked this video, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. And I can't wait to see you next time. Bye-bye.